Nigeria, Nigeria Meteorological Agency warns of imminent flight delays. In Kenya, fire incident kills toddler. Death toll rises from Philippines storm. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us on The World at Noon. The Nigeria Meteorological Agency has warned of possible bird strike incidents, flight delays and cancellations as the dry season begins in most parts of the country. NIMET said bird strike incidents were possible due to the influx of migratory birds to the country from other parts of the world. The Director General of NIMET, Professor Mansour Matazu, disclosed these in its forecast circular made available to newsmen. NIMET has therefore advised airline operators to get updated weather reports from NIMET officers for effective planning of their operations because with the warmer temperatures, there are higher chances of clear air turbulence. The agency also warned motorists to drive with caution, noting that as the dry season begins, the general public, particularly the motorists, to take cognizance of places where visibility is impaired by dust haze and drive cautiously. Still on events in Nigeria, the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has charged the country's leaders not to ignore concerns by any part of the country decrying the marginalization of its peoples. Speaking during the presentation of a book titled Foundations of Nigeria's Unity, written by the senator representing Cross River Central and governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Cross River State, Senator Lawan, warned that doing so would only decimate their patriotism and erect walls of division among the country's regions, as well as further inflame calls for secession. Also speaking, the book presenter, Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, stressed the need for equity and fairness both at federal and state levels in achieving the desired unity. Governor Wike, who was represented by the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Rivers State, Professor Zacchaeus Adango, said Nigeria needed to go back to the fundamental principles of our federal arrangements. South African ANC presidential hopeful and former health minister Zweli Mkhize has called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to consider asking Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan amid ongoing load shedding. Mr. Mkhize said it is time the governing party looks at new leadership and a minister to oversee a South African electricity public utility. According to him, the ANC needs to take responsibility if things are not going right in the government. It must change the policy. He added that there has been a long time for the leadership to prove itself, and if they are not successful, they need to be changed. A child aged 5 was killed in a fire incident that was caused by a gas cylinder explosion in Nairobi's Mukuru slums. The minor succumbed to injuries in the hospital hours after he had been rescued. The family and police said he sustained serious injuries in the incident. The fire was caused by a gas cylinder which exploded on Tuesday evening, burning the house where the child was and 4 other structures near there before it was contained by locals. Police said they are investigating the incident. Officials from Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Commission were also called to help in the probe. They want to know how and why the cylinder exploded. This is The World at Noon, coming to you from Osun State Broadcasting Corporation, Voice of the West, Nigeria. It is unwise to sulk in the face of challenges when we ought to earnestly pray. Don't undermine the power of prayer. After weeks of reassuring talk about America's economy and inflation, President Joe Biden turned last night to a darker, more urgent message, warning in the final days of midterm election voting that democracy itself is under threat from the former President Donald Trump's election-denying lies and violence, he said they inspire. Pointing in particular to the attack on the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, he said that Trump's false claims about a stolen election have fueled the dangerous rise of political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. 6 days before major midterm elections, Biden said there are candidates running for every level of office in America, for governor, for Congress, for Attorney General, for Secretary of State, who won't commit to accepting the results of the elections they are in. The president, who has been focused on drawing an economic contrast between Democrats and the GOP, shined a spotlight on ultra-MAGA Republicans, a reference to Trump's Make America Great Again slogan and mounting concerns over political violence. The speech comes days after a man seeking to kidnap House Speaker Pelosi severely injured her husband Paul Pelosi in their San Francisco home and as a physical threat have rattled members of Congress and election workers. Russia has said it will resume its participation in a deal freeing up grain exports from Ukraine, reversing a decision that world leaders want will increase hunger globally. Russia, whose forces invaded Ukraine on February 24, announced the reversal after Turkey and the United Nations helped keep Ukrainian grain flowing for several days without a Russian role in inspections. The Defense Ministry justified the resumption by saying it had received guarantees from Ukraine that it would not use the Black Sea grain corridor for military operations against Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it was important to stand up to crazy Russian aggression that destabilizes international trade. The grain deal, originally reached 3 months ago, had helped alleviate a global food crisis by lifting a de facto Russian blockade on Ukraine, one of the world's biggest grain suppliers. The prospect of it collapsing this week revived fears of a worsening food crisis and rising prices. The prices of wheat, soybeans, corn, and rapeseed fell sharply on global markets after Russia's announcement. Philippines authorities today says the death toll from severe tropical storm Peng, internationally known as Nalgae, has climbed to 150. National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, in a statement, said 36 people remaining missing, while 128 were injured during the heavy winds and rains in the Southeast Asian nation since last week. The storm swept through most of the southern Philippines, triggering floods and landslides. Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has placed Region 4A Calabazon, Bicol Region, Western Visayas, and Bangsamoro under a state of calamity for 6 months due to the devastation brought by Peng. The presidential press secretary said it will allow the government to effectively control prices of basic necessities and prime commodities, enable both the national and local government to utilize their funds for rescue, recovery, and rehabilitation measures. And here again are the highlights of the world at noon. The Nigeria Meteorological Agency has warned of possible bird strike incidents, flight delays, and cancellations as the dry season begins in most parts of the country. A child aged 5 has been reportedly killed in a fire incident that was caused by a gas cylinder explosion in Nairobi's Mukuru slums. Philippines authorities today says the death toll from severe tropical storm Peng, internationally known as Nalgae, has climbed to 150. The World at Noon, edited by Temitope Olaiwola and delivered by Titi Lokwe Achiboye. For more about us, you can visit www.osbcng.org. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon.
On Ocean Radio. Ocean Radio.
Community radio at its best.
104.5 FM.
Yes, strut up. OSBC Radio 2104.5 to the world. Yeah, man, state of Ocean. Yes, no must on my mic and make a do this. Yes, straight up fire set to me. Boom.
OSBC Radio, voice of the West you can trust. OSBC Radio, voice of the West you can trust. 104.5, voice of the West you can trust. 104.5, voice of the West you can trust.
Don't worry, don't you fret. OSBC, well it's a 104.5. Don't worry, don't you fret. OSBC, are the voice voice of the West, and we see. Follow every year radio station with a wider reach. And connect with them others really massively. Every day, every time I we dig and lead. Yes, yo, on the better know we informative. OSBC we educative. OSBC we qualitative. We are number one in the entertainment. Fire sentiment. Yo, in tune with the very best of radio programming. 100% entertainment. Qualitative news, information as it breaks. Yes, we're educated. Still, OSBC Radio 2.04.5 FM. Numero uno south of the Sahara. I want them said to me. Boom!
Family is fine, yo. Inspiration divine, yo. Shot the shot till we cross the line, yo. You got something I really like, oh baby. My baby. You got something I really like, oh baby. Oh baby, oh my baby, what's the time?
You say you're going through changes.